Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Pyromancer here, and welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all having a wonderful day, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. And today I'll be talking about one of my most favorite Final Fantasy XIV topics, the 12. So if you're one of those people that's been anxiously awaiting this video, buckle up, grab some popcorn, and I hope you enjoy yourself. If you do, please make sure to like the video and consider subscribing here on YouTube or following me over in my primary space at twitch.tv/pyromancer. Either way, we're going to jump into this, and I hope you guys enjoy. But before that, a quick word from our sponsor. The FlexiSpot E7 Pro Standing Desk is the core that holds my entire setup together. With an outstanding weight capacity of up to 355 pounds, the carbon steel frame supports everything I need to perform at my best. From my desktop and monitors to my literal face when I fall asleep gathering in Final Fantasy. One of my favorite features is the premium LED controls, which allow me to smoothly and silently adjust the desk's height and even save preset heights for quick hands-off adjustments. With several options for desk materials and colors, there's a style to match anyone. And purchase confidently with FlexiSpot's 30-day free return policy and 15-year warranty. While you're purchasing, be sure to take note of the variety of accessory options and, during promo periods, potential bundles and discounts. Frankly, the price-to-performance ratio makes it one of the best alternatives to more expensive brands like Herman Miller. If cost is an issue, rest assured that payment options may be available through Affirm. And there are even more deals coming up for President's Day, which is the 20th of February. Check out the E7 Pro with the link below. And thanks again to FlexiSpot for sponsoring today's video. Now, before we get too deeply into it, we first have to just establish what are the 12, right? The 12 are gods in Final Fantasy XIV that are kind of separate from the primals and are mostly worshipped by the civilizations of Eorzea. So think about them as kind of like the benevolent gods, so to speak, but also they're benevolent by the fact that we've never directly interacted with them, up until very lately, that is. As far as that point goes, where are they worshipped? Eorzea, of course, primarily. And I would also like to point out that at least in our other forays to shards, we have not seen any worship of the 12 mentioned there either. So not only does it seem to be specific to Eorzea, which is kind of at the heart of the world, so to speak, the omphalos of the world, so to speak, it's also seemingly specific to the source. And I will talk about that later, as there's an additional member of the 12 that kind of ties into that. But mainly Eorzea, they're kind of around where most of us are, right? They don't really trickle over into the Far East or into other areas that you've seen other deities like auspices and things like that present, right? So they're kind of specifically here. Where are they involved, right? City-states, that's the big one, right? They're big guidance factors for city-states. Halone in Ishgard, right? Nalthal in Ul'dah, Nafika in Gridania, right? Lim Lane in Lim Salaminsa. They're very, very much tied to civilizations, every single one of them. Oshan even had the, Nim, floating city of Nim. So, or Wandering Palace as well, So there's a lot tied into that. They also are the ones that we get married under the banner of. So in the game, you can actually get married to another player if you want to. And you basically have to go through this quest line where you learn more about the 12 and what that eternal bond means. So they're very ingrained also in a religious sense in our formalized partnerships, right? In marriage in the game. They are also involved heavily around Silver Tear Falls, as we have learned most recently that the entrance to their primary hub that splits to all their domains, the entrance is located, in fact, right at the shoreline of Silver Tear Lake. So they're definitely very involved there as well. The 12, as far as what they represent, I like to see it as they're kind of split into 3 different categories. They represent basic concepts like elements and polarity. They represent moderate concepts like commerce, exploration, the afterlife. And then they represent deep concepts. And by that, I mean things like courage, concord, strength of will, tenacity, those types of things that are more interpersonal, right? You're going from elements and astral and umbral because there is an astral and umbral representation for each element with the 12. And by that I mean, for example, Naldthal and Azema are both fire. One of them is umbral, which I believe is Naldthal. Azema, I believe, is the astral alignment. That doesn't necessarily matter for what I'm trying to say here, but the point is there's two of them for each, and I think that this illustrated very early on that there is an inherent balance between them all that I'm going to talk more about later. But yeah, they very simply represent elemental alignment and polarity. Moderate concepts, like I said, commerce and exploration, right? The one of the reasons anyway, why Ul'dah is a nation run off of commerce is because of their worship of Naldthal, right? And that's very evident, especially if you've done the Aglaya raid. Once you've listened to the theme song of Naldthal, it's a prayer song, is what it sounds like to me. You know, it's like it's a prayer, a chant to their god, right? O twin gods, bless this land. To us treasure bestow. You know. So there's a reason, you know, why that's so ingrained in that aspect, right? Then you have other gods like, let's say, Halone, right, who is really about like war. You know, if you were to look at war as a concept not as broad as elements, but not as defined as courage or strength of will, I think that's where those types of things tend to fall. You know, Halone with war, Oshan with exploration, Limlane with navigation and seafaring, right? Like they embody those as well. And then deeper concepts. If you guys don't know, you can read it on the wiki, or if you happen to have the Encyclopedia Eorzea books, you can read in there about saints of the 12. Synodic Scribe also, I believe, has a video on this where he goes over some of the different saints of the 12. And most of the 12 gods have one or two, sometimes three saints that have been kind of like termed that on their behalf. So, for example, there is a saint of Concord who represents Oshan, right? Concord being a deeper, you know, concept, something tying to that entity, and for that reason, that individual is recognized, you know, as a saint for that entity, right? If you were to have valor, you know, you might be more associated with Halone as that saint, for instance. So this extends down into peoples of Eorzea that have committed you know, great acts of kindness or humility or of sacrifice in order to really, it kind of sounds like people that did things that you'd imagine the warrior of light does. You know, we go around and we help people in any way that we can, even if we don't always initially agree entirely on the premise, right, of what is happening, right? Even if we don't fully have the picture. I feel like these saints were often crowned for those types of things. As far as the origins of the 12, well, the best place to look would be the Encyclopedia Eorzea once again, where a Charlayan scholar of great renown compiled all of the information, corroborating information, and conflicting information, and basically came up with the best origin story that would explain where they came from. And it talks about how all these gods were basically born out of the whirl, W-H-O-R-L, of nothingness, right? And from that, Althik was born, and hence time and space and the firmament was allowed, right? But these origin stories, they always catch me, dude. They always catch me. And I did the same thing in World of Warcraft, where the origin story of the Titans didn't make much sense to me. And, you know, I think, again, this is an in-universe interpretation of somebody, right? This isn't an all-knowing being, so they're working with the best that they have. One thing to be drawn from the origin story that is most important of anything, Oshan the Wanderer is the only god specifically in the creation mythos that is never referenced as to exactly where they come from. We know the relationship where every single god came from except Oshan, and I find that very peculiar. We're going to come back to that because it's very relevant given some of the most updated information that we've been given. But we have this origin story. These gods over time basically, you know, came together and figured out and sometimes quarreled with each other to figure out like their identity and all of this stuff, right? Oshan comes along and allegedly creates Naldthal, So that's kind of a big thing right there. So their origins are best outlined either in Encyclopedia Eorzea or on the wiki. But it's loose, right? And one of the things that people question the most is the familial connections between these entities. This is again something that happened in World of Warcraft with their pantheon of titans. That was kind of like, what does that really mean, right? Are they really sisters? Are they really brother and or son and father? Like, are we reaching into kind of the Greek god kind of wincest kind of thing? I don't, it makes some people uncomfortable, right? Like that's very common in the Greek mythology, which this is very heavily inspired from, if you haven't noticed, right? So there's some of that goes around, right? Like how are they actually related to one another? And some of that, believe it or not, is actually being revealed to us in the game, and it makes me so excited. As far as when people were first introduced to them, as far as recorded history goes, the 12 and worship of those gods goes back as early as the third astral era. But I know for a fact personally that they existed before that. We know now that they must have existed before the third umbral calamity, essentially. I want to talk about, though, how they've helped mankind, right? Over the years, the 12 have done much for mankind, but I think also we have done much for them. For example, things that the 12 do to help mankind, right? They help to give us groundwork. They help to give us a foundation upon which to build our beliefs. And I want you to think about the 12 not as rigidly predefined concepts. Like they weren't born exactly as Nafika. They weren't born exactly as Althik. I do not believe that that's the case. I believe that, and as they've shown us, as they've told us most recently in the FFXIV raid, they have exposed to us that, they were there to kind of give guidance. And we also kind of shape them, which we're going to talk about more in the future, right? It's kind of this dichotomy that's being drawn between the person and the faith and what is born of that faith, like the perception and the faith, and what is that cyclical connection that works there, right? Like how does one's beliefs affect their faith in a thing which is morphed by it, and then that morphing of kind of inversely has an effect on the beginning once again. Like there's a little bit of like a cycle to it, so to speak. There's a little bit of a trade, right? Like we kind of give, and from that we kind of get. But the important thing is they don't just appear out of nowhere and grant us blessings and go, oh, I'm Nafika, I'm fucking Nafika, and like, you want some tick old bitties? Here to go, right? Like, since that's everyone's favorite, the only thing anyone knows about Nafika, like, it's not like that, right? It's more about that symbiotic kind of relationship, and that there is a faith that exists there regardless of any physical connection between man and God, right? And what I mean by this, to further my point, is that there are things that the 12 haven't helped us with. And by that I mean Cartano. The 12 did not assist us at Cartano. And Azema in the raids that we've got most recently expands upon that with us, telling us that it was literally, speaks as a testament to the sheer willpower of mankind, that like, we believed that we had summoned down this great power of the gods, but in truth, we were harnessing our own faith and our own energy to birth what we perceived the 12 would be, right? That's what happened at Cartano. They did not come down and save us. Our prayers and Louis Sua's whole plan, that may have worked, but not because the 12 got involved, which is hilarious when you think about Gaius Van Baelsar's dialogue in Praetorium, where he mentions to you, what about the 12? Am I to believe that they're otherwise engaged? Like, where are they? Why don't you do what served you so well at Cartano and call them down then, huh? Why don't you do that? And in the moment, Gaius is right. Gaius is right with what he's saying. But they also didn't help us against things like Medion. They didn't really directly help us with Ascians, and by that I mean they did not descend from the sky and save us from anything, right? They, over time, gave mankind the ideas of commerce, afterlife. And through these things, mankind's power and faith grew, right? And also from this, the gods grew. So as far as their origins go, we up until recently, we don't know who they are, really. Who are these 12 gods? Were they people? Are they primals, right? We didn't really know. You know, when did they come from? Are they good? Are they bad? Why haven't we seen them? You know, even though I thought Ilberd was going to summon Rhalgr, he summoned Shinryu, right? How come those things have happened? Why don't we see them? Those are the questions that kept popping up in my mind. And they became really, really hard to ignore. And the more that I played through the game, the harder it became to ignore my desire to figure out who the fuck these people are. Who are these people? And I couldn't help but recognize offhand weird things, like how when I went through Anagnoresis, a Niter, for the first time, and we get to the end with all the scions, and we find this crystal mechanism which holds within it a projection of a memory which occurred there. We see Vana standing there, and we see 12 other people. My goodness. I noticed that immediately. I counted them out. I went, wait a second. How many people was there on that? That's fucking weird. And for the longest time, we had no connection, right? We had little things mentioned by Yoshi P about, what happened to the people that were sacrificed to create Hydaelyn, and how that, maybe if we were to look back into that time period now, some of those things may be interesting to us. And I think that Yoshi was making, his smart little hints that he does, right? As you guys know, in the most recent raids in Endwalker, we finally get introduced to the 12. We're introduced to them by an individual named Deryk. Now, Deryk, who is obviously, not hiding anything, there's nothing sus about him, he's really stoked about this whole thing. He's really excited. And all of a sudden, he shows up in Mordona, just wanders up one day, and finds the entrance to the Omphalos. We haven't even heard about this. To our knowledge, the 12 might not even fucking exist. We've heard about them many, 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 many times, but we've never seen them. And for a lot of people, seeing is believing. Turns out that Deryk has already explored the Omphalos and all of their different realms and everything. And that's so great that Deryk has done all that. Deryk's also accompanied by a cute little Oppo. It's the sweetest little thing ever. And we're immediately meant to be suspicious of this Oppo, because we learn very quickly in the early days of early cutscenes of the raid that the 12 like to disguise themselves as little animals. Now, when it comes to being spotted, the 12, they have been spotted in the past as calamities have occurred. We learned in this raid from Grohatia, as calamities have occurred and ethereal disruptions have happened, the 12 have been spotted inadvertently. Now, we're told that the 12 do not intentionally reveal themselves to anybody, but this can inadvertently occur. I would like you, though, to stop and consider that there are multiple things that occur when a calamity happens. The first of which is, if it is successful, there is a rejoining, right? If there is a rejoining, Zodiark becomes more powerful, and Hydaelyn becomes weaker as she has to expend more power to keep him at bay. But also, when calamities occur, the 12 are sighted more often. And I think that it's intentional, whether they want to admit it or not. I think that them being exposed to people has led people to safety, has led people to believe certain things. We learn this with the whole premise of Rhalgr as we go through Aglaia, the god of destruction. We go to Rhalgr's Reach, and we learn about the statue. We learn about why it's depicted that way, about the comet that they saw flying through the sky. And so some of those Alamegans fled, and because of that, they were able to escape the clutches of the calamity. Now, whether or not that was intentionally by Rhalgr or not, the fact of the matter is that Rhalgr never came down from the sky and said, "Hey, my faithful subjects, come with me and I will guide you to safety." That doesn't occur because they don't get involved like that. They never have. They never have. The 12 never have done that. Now, in the immediate thing that they say to us when we discover them is, now that Hydaelyn is gone, we are the will of the star. And I thought this was so telling right from the rip. because this shows us a couple things. In my opinion, this shows that they have respect for Hydaelyn, because if they didn't, they wouldn't use her as the reason for which they could not exert their will. They have to, at least to some extent, respect Hydaelyn's power and what she represents. Otherwise, in my opinion, they don't say that. But they also, very intentionally, of course, as they acknowledge after the fact, they're doing it to draw us in, right? They knew that as Hydaelyn's chosen champion, as the 9/14th part of Azem's soul, the greatest portion of Azem in the universe, by far, that we would bite. Even if they don't know that we're all the different parts of Azem, they know we're the Warrior of Light, they knew we would bite on it, right? They baited us into it. And I thought this was so hilarious because I think it's a very human behavior. It's very like, it's deceptive, but they also feel guilty. You know, Bayergot has to come out and apologize to you for being deceptive because he literally feels bad about it, right? So we're introduced to them initially as like they're a threat. We don't know what they are. Are they primals? Even though they explicitly state to us that they are not primals, we still continue to search for that. Are they primals? How does this work? This leads Grahatia to the discussion about like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Did the faith of people come first or did the 12 come first? My question is, does it really even matter? Now that they're inexorably intertwined, I don't even know what matters at what came first. Maybe in a sense they were all born of a similar essence at the same time. But let's get further into this. In the second raid tier of Myths of the Realm, FFXIV, now we're getting into a little bit of a different space with the 12 because now we are interacting with them outside of the raid. We're getting to the point where we're going to go learn about how people see them, and they too want to bear witness to their influence and those types of things on the world. And so they literally travel with us. Menfina and Halone come outside of the raid with us so that they can come and witness other things. But the point that I'm trying to make is we're getting much more personal with these gods. Now, there's a couple things that I want to back up and I want to acknowledge that have happened, okay? Deryk. Deryk is 1,000,000% Oshan the Wanderer. There's no question in my mind that Deryk is him. And before anyone else types in the comments, oh, it's the Oppo Pyro, it's the Oppo. Let me just reiterate that during the last set of cutscenes from the raid, from FFXIV, the gods actually stop and acknowledge that Oppo. Like, they're literally looking right at it, acknowledging it. We're talking about it. Deryk told us back when he first met us that he found this when it was injured, and it just decided to follow him and be connected with him and do this, right? So immediately, once we found out that they were, the 12 would disguise themselves as animals, everyone thought that, the Oppo would be Oshan. And I think it's a red herring. And I think that's hilarious to call it a red herring because Oshan has red hair, and the red herring for Oshan is the Oppo that's following him around. The gods stop and talk to it, right? Deryk literally says to the Oppo, he says, you're not beholden to me. Like, you don't have to follow me around everywhere if you don't want to. Like, you can go on your own way whenever you want. And I thought that was kind of their way of saying, like, showing us, like, this thing is it's a monkey. Like, it's an Oppo. Like, it's not the thing about Oshan that I want to remind you of is Oshan's role as one of the 12 is to go out into the world of man and learn the hearts of man and see their plight, see their struggles, right? To be familiarized with mankind. It's almost exactly like Azem, the Traveler, which, I don't think is a coincidence personally. Deryk is becoming increasingly more sentimental with us. And as you get to the end section of the FFXIV raids, Deryk is talking to you about, one day we're going to have to part ways. And, I'm sad about that. It surprises me to think that, that I'll be sad about that. And it's really starting to continue. I mean, it's not starting to, it's just continuing to sell the idea that, like, Deryk is one of them. He literally wandered up out of nowhere, just like Oshan in the fucking mythos. He baited us in. He pretends like he doesn't know what's going on, but he definitely does. He says he doesn't fight, but Oshan is also depicted extremely similarly to Deryk. Like, same hair color, same garb color, like they have the same, like they're thematically very similar. I have a feeling Deryk does know how to fight. He can fight, and I bet Deryk fucks. And I mean, Oshan probably fucks. Going further into this, like, who actually are these people? That's become quite evident to me. I mean, over time, like, these 12 people are in fact the 12 followers of Hydaelyn, of Vana, that we saw in the cutscene at Aniter. They're the very same people, and there was 12 of them. But here's the problem. As we've gone deeper into this raid, we found out one other really big thing. That there's not 12 of them. That there's actually 13 of them. And if you guys don't remember what I'm talking about, if you did the raid and you're like a filthy cutscene skipper, which is that's disgusting. I can't believe you would do that. If you did that, you might have missed a big cutscene where Kryl talks about the big icon in the center of the Omphalos and talks about how literally we decode and read off this fucking cipher that's been written on it that basically is there to stand as a permanent reminder of like the charge of what these 12 gods are meant to do. And during the recitement of all of these charges, it became evidently clear to me. On my stream, I just broke down because I knew who it was. I knew that it was the 12 followers of Hydaelyn. And I knew that they were real people. That this is more than this random, happening of gods. Like, there's a deeper connection that has occurred here. And it sunk in deeper and deeper with me, the conviction and my belief that these people, these gods, they act in service of Hydaelyn. They have all but admitted it up until this point when FFXIV came out. And then after we're going through this explanation of who all of them are, the last one is the unnamed 13th god, who will watch, ever vigilant from his station until the very end of days. And they are so clearly talking about the Watcher on the moon. The Watcher on the moon whose eternal charge is to watch Zodiark and keep him imprisoned. And no one was supposed to know his name, which is very likely to be Fusoya or Heimdall at this point. Very likely to be Heimdall, even though it's Norse. I know. All the other gods are, generally, the ancients are generally Greek named, except Vana, which is Latin. And then you see more Norse actually involvement with the Allegans, who are descendants of the ancients in a very direct respect as well. So there's some connections there, but the reason why some people think he might be named Heimdall, and I think it's a very good idea, is because Heimdall sits upon, his station at the Bifrost, which is basically a big rainbow gateway bridge that connects to all the other realms, and through that he's able to peer into the 9 realms, right? So this concept that like the Watcher, who is on the moon, who is also fragmented on all the other moons, who sits atop his station, ever watching, like there's a good chance that that's going to be what his name is if they end up revealing it. But they drop this on us, that there's the Watcher is one of them. Holy shit. This is breaking people's minds, right? People are freaking out. Oh my goodness, what the heck is going on? As soon as we saw that Nemea and Althik were in the fight together, when they gave us the trailer, I said to my chat, guys, this looks like this is going to be a dual fight, and that's going to leave us with a problem. Because that means that the final raid tier, which should have been Nemea, Thaliak, Oshan, and Limlane, is now just going to be Thaliak, Oshan, Limlane. I went, wait a second, we're missing a boss. And then they dropped out on us. The 13th one, the unnamed one, is the Watcher. But there's more to it. Get this, you guys. It gets way deeper than that. This is what I've been really excited to share with you. 2 primary concepts that I want to share with you here. What I think is going to happen at the end of this raid, and where the 13th one comes from. How did this happen? Let me remind you guys of something. Like I said earlier, in the cutscene at Aniter, we know that Vana is one of the 13 people depicted in that room, right? So it's Vana and 12 other people. Yes? We also know from the short story on the website, A Friendship of Record, that one of those people is the Watcher. Now, if you don't see where I'm going with this, allow me to make it evidently clear. If Vana became Hydaelyn, and there were 12 other people in that room, and one of them is the Watcher, who was secret up until recently, then that means we have an extra god and no person to account for them. And if I had to guess which god doesn't fit in with the other ones and is a little bit different, I'm going to say Oshan. Because Oshan, once again, even in the best guess creation mythos, we don't know where Oshan came from. But I'd like you to stop and think about something. How similar is Oshan to Azem? I mean, is it even crazy to think that these roles that the 12 fulfill in what they do in service to Hydaelyn, as Kryl caps off the the whole thing by saying they're serving Hydaelyn, it's not hard to see how these entities could have been inspired by members of the Convocation. I mean, when you consider that there were 14 members of the Convocation, including Elidibus, and then you have 14 members on Vana's side, you've got Vana, and then you've got the Watcher, and then you've got 12 people who gave themselves up to become 12 gods in some capacity. I would be willing to bet that Oshan is the work of someone who didn't want to be present anymore. And by that, yes, I mean, I think that there is a very good chance that Oshan is a direct creation of Azem before the Sundering occurred. Because as the timeline of events goes, Zodiark was summoned, people were sacrificed for its will, Vana went, oh hell no, we can't do this. Splinter faction was made. Azem goes, I'm not going to be involved in this. So he leaves the Convocation. He's like, nah, I'm not doing any of this. We're not in this. That may have even occurred before Zodiark was summoned. But regardless, Azem is like, nah, I'm out of here. Right? Which is why the whole drama about Azem not having his crystal and why Emmett Selk decided to make one later on. That's the whole reason why that occurred, right? Azem was gone, right? So it's also assumed that Azem's not part of her group. But let me ask you this. I mean, we're Azem. And I don't think people stop to realize this enough. People say, when do you think we'll meet Azem? Guys, we are Azem. There's no meeting Azem. We are Azem. We are the greatest portion of Azem's soul in the universe. We're not going to meet Azem. The closest thing we ever did to meeting Azem was meeting Ardbert, because he was another shard of Azem. But we are Azem. There's no one to go meet. I have to say, I could see Azem, the troublemaker, that they can be. I very well could see Azem crafting Oshan as a familiar. I mean, think about this. How many times have we been told that Azem makes familiars? Incredibly impressive familiars. Nonetheless, very intelligent. Like, people thought we were a familiar in Elpis, and we were going around helping them perfect their creations. And they accepted our advice happily because they perceived us as a familiar of Azem. So think about this. If Azem defects and he goes off, Hydaelyn is created. It's not as though as soon as Hydaelyn is made, she just goes, bam, and claps Zodiark's ass cheeks. Like, I don't think that's what happened. Like, we know that there was conflict back and forth for a while until the final blow, the sundering which occurred, is what made all of this happen, right? So there was time where this shit happened, okay? But what I want to throw out there is that the point during which the people meet with Vana, when they agree, we're going to do this thing, you're going to become Hydaelyn, this is all going to occur, like, they didn't know what was going to happen. Even the Watcher himself admits in the short story that he believed that even Vana withheld truth of her whole plan from them, and that even in the final moments where he brought to her this last crystal of knowledge and information, of cosmological wisdom that she needed to make all of this happen, it was that last thing he brought her. He didn't even fully understand how she planned to use that. What I'm trying to say is that I think that it's very possible that Vana, essentially rebirthed these people more than just in concept, but really, the people are still there. had these people reborn. And for people like the Watcher, she was, as he admits himself, she was very selective in the memories that she allowed him to keep, that he was allowed to retain, right? And part of that is because obviously she doesn't want him interfering with her grand plan, but also I think because of what his duty is, what his job is, right? It's the same. I think it's part of the same reason why they have this monument in the Omphalos, that they have to remember their charge and the oath that they took, that they swore to Hydaelyn, right? Like, I see them as so much more than gods to be worshipped and to ask for help. Like, these were people that we have literally met. And if you didn't know this, someone actually went back and found a screenshot of one of the side quests in Elpis. And you can go back and you can do this side quest right now if you don't believe me. There is a side quest at, I think it's Piatin Ikos in Elpis. It's like the last Aetheryte hub area up near, the main facility. And you can actually run into these two NPCs, Myra and Alkeos. They're brother and sister. They have white hair. They have an entire quest line where they take you through, and you are helping them as a familiar determine if these other people's creations are good enough to be submitted or not, right? But through the quest, there is a piece of dialogue in which Myra speaks to us about her brother and says, don't mind my brother. Like, I'm sure you can't tell, but he's overjoyed to see you. He just doesn't know how to express it, right? I'm paraphrasing. But someone actually remembered this quote, and they compared it to the quote that Nemea says about Althik in the raid, and it is word for word identical. And to me, this is irrefutable proof that Myra and Alkeos are Nemea and Althik. These were real people. These were real people that we may have actually interacted with. And who knows what others may be present in Elpis that are hiding right under our noses that we just can't even remember. Now, keep in mind that the Watcher can't be one of them, because he does tell us that during our forays into Elpis, he would have been in Amarot at Aniter. So, and that's actually part of why all of this, that is the reason why they are headquartered in Aniter during the cutscene where they're all meeting, because during the time where this occurred, the Watcher was actually the chief archivist of Anamnesis Aniter, which is crazy. That is a very high station. Like, there's side quests, you have to compare dialogue, you have to compare what they care about. During the quest with Althik and Nemea, you literally are helping them review concepts that, whether you guys realize it or not, showed up in the trash packs leading to their boss fight in the raid. Can you believe that? The frogs that you fight, the like horned beast things that you fight, even Behemoth. Those creations are all in the quest line with them in Elpis. It's some of the best, it's some of the coolest continuity I've ever fucking seen in any video game. And you can tell that I have a very hard time like retaining my excitement, because this is the kind of thing that like I look for, that I peel back the layers trying to find, and to know that they're actually doing it is so fucking awesome, to be able to think that like our theories and our time spent formulating ideas is not in vain, because the story is comprehensive and it makes sense and it follows a tune. And so that's why I'm going to tell you the sad part. That's why it's time for me to tell you the sad part. They're all going away. They're all going away. Here's why I'm telling you this. We're getting more and more insight into the people that they are, how they've been shaped by the faith of man over millennia. Why were they here? Ask yourself that question. Why are the 12 here? Well, if we look back to when they came from, their purpose, if we read their monument, they are here to help guide mankind to realizing their own greatness. It is exactly in line with Hydaelyn. It is exactly the same premise. We were crawling, then we were walking, and now we're running, thanks to what the 12 have helped us find in ourselves. That's what is so important for you to realize. That's why they're non-intravenous. They don't come down at Cartano and save us. They are not going to come and save us from Medion. They're not going to directly come down and stop the Ascians. Why? One, because I don't know if they even have the power to do it. But two, because that was never their point. The point of the 12 is, always was, and always shall be to help mankind realize himself and realize that there is power in faith without having to have your God descend from the sky and kill things or kill you, like what happened with primals, like we saw. They don't bind people to their will. They don't suck ether from the land. They don't do any of those things, frankly, because they're probably dynamis constructs. Graha Tia in the most recent FFXIV raid takes measurements of the ether and we never talk about it. I wonder why. I bet you it's because the fucking gods themselves are probably almost entirely comprised of, you guessed it, like I said, dynamis, right? It's why our hopes, it's why our prayers, it's why those things help them realize their dreams real, and their dream, once again, is helping us. It's symbiotic, right? But the point is we could never have relied upon them as saviors. And I'm gonna use a real life, I'm not trying to be controversial, I'm just gonna use a real life, well-known, religion, right? Christianity, Jesus Christ, Son of God, right? There is a faith that exists for people that believe in that, regardless of whether or not he comes down from the sky, right? That's not the point. The point, and if you can go ask a lot, I'm sure a lot of religious people would have a similar outlook that, like, yeah, the point isn't that I believe in it because he's going to come down and save us, right? I believe in it because it gives me foundation, it gives me beliefs, it gives me more different code of morals or ethics or whatever, for whatever reason that it is, right? But it's almost never, because I talked to him the other day. I sat on a park bench with him. Like people talk about that kind of thing. I talked to him, right? But it's in a deeper self like philosophical sense is what I'm trying to say. And I make this point because I feel like this is how the religions based on the 12 have kind of been handled. And I mean that specifically for the example that I'm making here, in that the foundation for the beliefs for mankind are already cemented. The 12 don't need to come down and reveal themselves to us. There is no reason, right? Because the last thing that they would want and the last thing that we need is to develop some kind of dependence on them. I feel like if that was the case, we would have been wiped out a long time ago. Just developing dependence on them. We always lean into the 12 every time there's an issue. That's not going to help us, right? We can't become dependent. And so they were never able to act in any capacity that would allow mankind to become dependent. And it's this point that I say to reinforce the idea that everything is already ingrained. And I want you to realize that nobody knows about this. No one knows except for us, Snowgem, Grahatia, and Deryk, who is one of them, that this is occurring in Kryl, right? Like, this is being kept very secret. Like, this is high echelon stuff. The Warrior of Light, fucking Grahatia, a god that is Oshan, Kryl, who's the fucking granddaughter of the leader of the Baldessian Annex, the students of Baldessian. Like, these are high tier individuals that know about this. No one else knows. And so what I would say to you, and I hope you guys get where I'm coming from when I say this, is that the 12 could disappear tomorrow and it wouldn't make a difference. And I don't say that as a bad thing. That's a beautiful thing. Because with what we have given them and they to us, and the inspiration and hopes drawn forth from one another, is what has helped get us this far, not them being our guardian angels. And I want you to stop and think about this. When Hythlodaeus and Emmet's mission, when they were finally finished, what did they do? They returned to the star, presumably. What do ancients do? You don't even have to be a convocation member, just so you guys know. There's plenty of NPCs you can talk to in Elpis who talk about how after they finish their creation, they're going to return to the star. It's what they do when their purpose is fulfilled. And so we go through this raid and we're talking about, where do they come from? What's their purpose? Why are they showing us all this? But none of that's being revealed to us. And you want to know why? It's because they're going to have to say goodbye. And that's what Oshan's talking about in this dialogue at the end of the raid. He's not going to be happy when we have to part ways. He's going to be sad. But at the same time, their charge, what they fought for is over. The Hydaelyn Arc, the reason why everything was sundered, the Meteon thing, the Dynamis thing, it's over. I mean, in terms of that story arc with Zodiark, is there any reason for the Watcher to be out on the moons anymore? We were told that when Zodiark was killed, that the remaining fragments of him dissipated. Why is the Watcher even on the moon anymore? And what do we need the 12 for? I don't think we do, but I think that there is something that they need us for. And I think that's self-realization. It's self-actualization. It's them finally getting to rest. And so yes, that's my theory. At the end of FFXIV, at the end of the raid, which the last wing will almost certainly be called Thalia, because it's the third name of the three graces. FFXIV, Aglaia, Thalia. Just makes sense. I'm pretty sure that we're going to see them go. And what I want so badly is to see them for the people that they were. Because I think that's the value here, you know? They helped us, but really, they helped us help ourselves. And they need to be remembered for that. They need to be commended for that. They need to be loved for that and appreciated. They sacrificed everything. How long have they waited for this moment? As Althik says. How long have they been doing this? Since the Sundering? Since potentially before the Sundering? And will it be sad? Yeah, it's going to be sad. But I think inevitably it's the only outcome. We're not going to sail off on a fucking ship with them to New Horizons. People say, well, why would we just have them leave? What, they can help us? What, there's going to be dangers in Marasidia? It's like people don't hear what I'm trying to say to them about how the 12 aren't going to save you. They're not going to save anybody. We saved ourselves. As was always the point. As was always their mission to guide us unto. But we can't ask them to do that forever, can we? Eternity is a long time. Eternity of servitude, even if you volunteered for it, is a long time. We're talking 12,000 years that this has gone on, potentially. And it just seems right to me that as ancients, in Origin, that's what will happen. They'll all go away, and for the masses in Eorzea, nothing changes. Because we never summoned them down. They never came down and helped us. They never made those promises. No one is reliant upon them because of how they have acted, how they've played their cards up until now, and it's worked very well. And I'm pretty sure the last raid, it's going to be Thaliak, Oshan, Limlane, and then either Heimdall, Fusoya, or they might just leave him named as the Watcher. The reason I say Fusoya is because if you guys don't, I mean, he's on the Crystal Palace on the moon. That's a reference to Final Fantasy IV. Fusoya was a Lunarian who wore a robe that is identical to the Watcher's, and watched over Zemus on the moon to make sure that he didn't escape. Sounds a lot like the Watcher, doesn't it? There's more that I can talk about this. There's more, but it's too much for a video. We're at 34 minutes just on this part of the recording. It's just too much. So I'll leave it there, but I wanted to share with you guys my outlook on the 12. Who I think they are, you know. What do they mean? Why are they here? And what's going to happen at the end of this? Let me say this. I think Pandemonium is going to end with a tragic sad. Elidibus probably going to have something to do with the promise that he made. And we're all going to cry. We're going to hard cry. We're going to sad cry. We're going to pain cry. But I think that FFXIV and the Myths of the Realm is going to be different. I think we're going to happy cry. I think we're going to it's just I appreciate what they have done. And I see them as doing the same type of self-sacrifice that Vana did. And whether or not they were completely lost and now just represent conceptually these gods, is something that could probably still be argued, because I really think that more of these people exist than what we give credit to. We talk about the Watcher and we talk about these entities to an extent like they're copies of something. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. They're like recycled versions of the originals, but they're not copies. I don't see it like that. I see them for the people and value them for the people that they were, regardless of whether or not that's what they are now. Because at some point in time, those people chose to make that sacrifice. And that has to be honored. That has to be acknowledged. What the 12 have done for Eorzea has to be acknowledged. And I hope that it gets to be. I really hope that, we get to see. And what the tale of the, what the tale of it all is for Oshan, I don't know. But I want to leave you with the reminder that we got 14 gods and only 13 people that we can hold responsible for them. So I'd like you guys to help me figure out who's the odd god out. And if you think it's Oshan with me, let's just stop and think about, what does it mean to be a familiar? How have we never come across a familiar of Azem before? That's never occurred, even though he was renowned for making them. I'd like to know. So with that being said, you guys, this is the first sit down and recorded full-on lore video that I've done for Final Fantasy. And I hope it didn't disappoint you. I've been terrified to make videos because I'm afraid that they'll suck. And that's pretty much just the truth. So I really hope you enjoyed, and look forward to more of this. We'll see if my theory ends up becoming true later on. I was very satisfied and very happy with myself after Efrosini and Aglaia. I feel like I've got a pretty fucking good beat on what they're doing here. And only time will tell. But I appreciate you guys hearing me out, hearing my perspective. If you want to hear this type of conversation live, sometimes with even more articulation than this, follow me. It's twitch.tv/Pyromancer. And this is something that comes up a lot. So thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed, the best way to let me know that, help me build my confidence in video making, is to like the video. It really means a lot to me. And leave a comment down below, letting me know what you think. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know how to stop videos now. I don't know how to end videos. So, join my Discord, discord.gg/Pyromancer. And thanks again to FlexiSpot for sponsoring the video. So, yeah. I'm gonna go now. Peace!